It's a bit scary. Jabunene. Is it? Yeah, but it's late now. I'm fully check. Thank you. Sanbona Tapelo, how's it? Olishundu njani? Siyaphila. Yes. Cha basibusi. Ngiyabingelela njani? Ndlovu Chantel, ulithatha phi igama lamakhaladi uNdlovu? Thina sakhula sazi ukuthi Chantel ilabo sisi laba abathi. Njani, thank you guys for joining. Thank you for joining. This is a very important subject matter that we are going to be addressing. Yes, it's Menzi. Yeah, uhluphyos kwembewu. Yeah, kusazoshuba umenzi usazoshubisa izinto, usazophathisa abantu nge-anxiety. I guess that's why we decided to do this live chat about the anxiety, because izinto ezazokwenziwa umenzi yo namzi yangithusa. Isazothusa wami uzothi ayibo eyami lengane. Please talk in English. Okay, I'm going to speak English, but my English is komsi komsa. Yeah, so Women's is gonna be very hectic in these coming weeks, which is why we decided we are going to do this. Hello, I'm waving back, which is why we decided to do this, because I'm gonna cause anxiety to a lot of people. Yeah, but the subject matter that we are going to discuss today is a very serious one. We're gonna be having a chat with a clinical psychologist. And Abanguti, it is important. This is a very, there she is, subject matter. If you're looking at the things that have been happening in our country recently, it has caused a lot of hurt. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm well, and yourself?
I'm great.
Can you see me? Audible?
Yes, I see you. You're looking.
Thank you.
I'm looking
You're looking by yourself.
I'm looking for an Italian word to describe what I see right now. Like kind of thing.
Oh, I'm blushing.
How are you?
I'm well, and yourself?
I'm great. I was still just explaining, Uti, the subject matter that we are going to be discussing today is a very, very, very important one. The situation has also been exacerbated by the events of the previous week. But in general, people are going through a lot. As young people would often say, we are going through the most. So many people are going through the most, and thank you for availing yourself. It's my very first time talking to a psychologist in
I can read your mind. I know.
Yes.
I see.
But thank you very much. Maybe for the people that have already logged on, who are you and what is your qualification?
Okay. Igama lami nguPortia Owakamazabane. I'm a clinical psychologist by profession. I'm also a PhD candidate. Hopefully this year I'll be done. I'm researching with mental health stigma. I work with a lot of depression and anxiety cases. I work with couples. I work with adolescents. I also work with individuals in jail, umuntu that needs to address any issues like his mental illness, basically.
Yeah. Thank you very much. We are also living in days where people also always want to ask Uguti, what's in it for me? If you do something like this, people would ask, what's in it for me? Thank you, Uguti. The mental health of people in general is what is in it for you, which is why you and I are doing this today. Without any further ado, you know, I've always wanted to say this. Without any further ado, it makes me sound intelligent and educated. I have a PhD in etiology. So many people are going through different challenges.
particularly men. I'm happy that everyone is here, but in general, us men, we have a problem of reaching out to other people to say, I've got a problem. But in Zulu, we have a saying, Uti, sometimes you need to address your issues with other men in the crowd. So this is us today inviting people to say, let us try and fix and identify problems and find ways to fix them. So we are going to be talking about anxiety and depression, and also how to identify depression and anxiety. Maybe what is depression and what is anxiety?
Okay. Depression and anxiety, first of all, I would like to explain Uguti. The reason they are used most of the time together is because they co-occur. They co-occur. It's like they are twins. They are attached to one another. Whenever a person is depressed, their mood drops. In other words, it's not that normal sadness. We all get sad at some point in time. But this type of sadness, like it is like a deep sadness that a person feels. A person, because it is a mood disorder, a person also feels irritable. They become angry. And on top of that, they become anxious as well. They isolate themselves. They don't want to interact with others. They have like their self-esteem and how they view things also start dropping because they start evaluating themselves in a negative manner. The way they evaluate themselves as well as the way they evaluate other people also is impacted. If umuntu mhlambe ojwayele ukuspend isikhathi nabantu, the person no longer does that. The person might oversleep or undersleep. So it is different. Kunabanye who like, you'd say, let's go out today. When they are depressed, you find that they'll rather prefer to be sleeping the whole day. Abanye, they struggle with sleeping. As well as eating. The eating patterns, we see them affected because abanye babo uzobe ati, uya overeater, omunye agadli. And you see like small particular trends that don't only affect bona, but it also affects makasemsebenzini abantu bazabathi hey lo umudi, hey lo unama moods or low, because people don't understand such things. And then nasesikolweni, if umuntu wesikolo, they'll also be affected. And in other places where they spend time with others, they don't want to be going to those places. So ama symptoms, again, they don't only show like in your a way of thinking, in emotions, they also show physically. And which is one thing that I think we are blessed with. Uguti, your body tells you sometimes, like a person would constantly complain of somatic complaints. Soma just means body, whereby a person struggles with a headache, back aches, they have all these things. Those are a result. When you look at several symptoms combined, a person might be depressed. And it is not like Uguti, one person and the other, they will feel exactly the same symptoms. Because as human beings, we are made differently. The context here too differs. You might experience Muzi, your symptoms within that category. I'll experience my symptoms. Why? Because we are not the same. Our context is different, our environment is different, our upbringing is different, our personality is different. So all those things, they contribute to whenever a person is depressed. And then on the other hand, to answer the other question that you asked about the anxiety. The anxiety is when you have this persistent fear and terror, you're feeling terrified. And do you know something, Muzuguti? Anxiety is good for us, but we don't know that. Anxiety is good for us. Let me make an example. We know, for instance, if I'm anxious, I will not go jogging when 9 o'clock ebusuku, because my anxiety tells me, no, you can't do that. You are a female. This is South Africa. Because it is meant to protect us. And also, anxiety that also comes up in stress, because stress now so motivates you. That is a positive anxiety. But when anxiety starts crippling you, when you no longer are able to function, when you are when you isolate yourself as well, when you are crippled in one way or the other. For instance, whenever a person is struggling, categorize as an anxiety disorder, it is when mhlawumbe makufunele abe around abantu lapho sekacabanga ukuthi abantu babheke bona i-social anxiety, and mhlambe makufuze ayenze something, the person thinks so negatively about themselves, and also omunye wabo uthola ukuthi uba nama-panic attacks whereby they start trembling, their heart beats faster, they sweat, they do this, and they overthink izinto. They are worried all the time, you know. And when you see it manifesting that way, it is no longer the type of a healthy anxiety that all human beings need to have. It is now a crippling anxiety because it restricts you from doing certain things.
You said something very interesting. You said the anxiety, sometimes it's good for us, but when it gets to a certain point, then it's bad. When it gets to a point where it's bad, is it hereditary, or is it because of my thought patterns? Is it the way I think? And how do I get myself, when you see, when you are in a hole that you've been digging yourself, my question is then, how then do you get yourself out of that hole? How do you've helped by identifying to me, Uti, how do I identify the anxiety and the depression? But when I find myself already at home, are there thought patterns that I need to entertain? Is there a way of thinking that I need to engage in to get myself out of that? Or do I always need a psychologist? What are the practical steps that I can use to get myself out of a hole that I've been digging for myself?
My question is 20 at once, but I'll try and answer them.
But I trust the mind.
Okay. Anxiety or depression or any form of mental illness, there is no particular thing that we can say it is caused by this. However, in scientific field, we all agree, Uguti, there are basic facts, at least 4 of them. Number 1, you mentioned it, your genes or your hereditary. In other words, if ever my parents or in my genes, someone had a mental illness, I'm likely to struggle with a mental illness. But that does not mean, Uguti, abantu who do not have that hereditary form are not going to have it. You understand? So whenever you come to me and I do assessment, I'll ask you, is there a history of mental illness, Guinea? And then I will know that you already are at risk. And then there's also an issue of a traumatic experience. How did I grow up? Was I socialized? How was I socialized? What environment am I living in? Is it an environment full of aggression? Is it an environment full of traumatic experiences? And on top of that, there's also an issue of biochemistry. Because whenever we are exposed a lot into traumatic experiences, there's evidence that our chemicals, or our chemical, like those good chemicals, they get affected. Now, hence, your biochemistry affected, chemical imbalance. And there's also an issue of personality, because what we likely see is that people with low self-esteem, they self-judge themselves harshly about certain things, and the way they view certain things about themselves put them at a risk. But now, because you have also mentioned something very important, now that you are in that hole of anxiety, how do you then come out? You know, the sad thing, people don't want to be in that hole, number 1. It's that complicated. It is that difficult. A lot of people who end up being in that depressive hole or who end up in that state whereby they are even suicidal. It's not like they had a choice, but okay, ngiyajampela kulo mgodi, there I am, hooray. No, it doesn't work that way. It develops slowly but surely. And how I personally describe it, I usually say it's like a slide that is slowly going down. And one day you see yourself in this hole, which is very difficult to maneuver. And because it is difficult to maneuver, and because it has a lot of because it has a lot of because it has a lot of emotions that you are dealing with, and it's very difficult for you or any other human being to say, you know what, I'm struggling, this is my emotion. By the way, when I'm injured in my leg or my hand, I can easily come to you and say, Muzubona, how deep. With emotions, it's very difficult to show. And because it involves those complexities, Zoguti, it's abantu, they cannot express themselves. Abantu, they cannot describe themselves. Sometimes they don't even are aware, or they are not even clued up with what's going on with them. It's very difficult for them to maneuver. You understand? So, and since it is very difficult to maneuver, but it is not impossible.
Yeah. Okay.
It is difficult, but it is not impossible. It is doable. That is the hope that
so so the way I think, can it help me? Can I sort this out merely with positive thinking, or do I always need a clinical psychologist?
It depends. If umuntu experience mild depression, mild depression, a lot of times when you come to me, it's possible that, say uzagimi, and I see that you have symptoms of mild depression, I can assist you. You know what you are battling with, it's mild depression. And because I got figgy, because depression in a mild, severity stages, it's your mild, it's your moderate, and it's your severe. Remember, I spoke about that slide earlier. Whenever a person who mild depression, when you come to me, because as I'm a psychologist, we use different modalities. For instance, there are those modalities. I personally prefer to use everything else. I would use your cognitive CBT, your cognitive behavioral modality, whereby I teach you how to challenge your thinking, your thought patterns, and everything else. Kodwa omunye umuntu might be using a different modality, for instance. Yes, you are right. In terms of how we think, also contribute ukuthi how a person feels. You're absolutely right. Kodwa it is a learned skill. You don't just wake up and say, whilst you have this pain, have this head, and say, yay, I'm a good person, I'm this and this. It doesn't work when you don't go deeper, dig deeper. Remember I told you there are those factors that form your foundation. When you don't dig deeper and check and have somebody assisting you, and when you don't even know how to identify at this moment, what am I going through? What is going on with me?
And Indo, thank you very much for explaining it that way. You explain it in a way that even I can understand, you know. Thank you very much for that. But now, you know, Ms. Portia, we are living in a virtual world where I will see Muzi Mthabela walking on the red carpet dressed by so-and-so. You see me on the front cover of a magazine. You see me all over the place, and you're like, wow, he's living the life, you know. So everybody else, I'm selling this picture that I've got it sorted out, I've got it figured out, you know. There's a lot of people out there. I think I do it myself to show myself or to show a certain side of myself to the world. But how then do I help a friend who is in that situation? How do I identify with depression? I think anxiety. Because whenever they come to me, they are happy, they are smiling, they are badly, but my say, you know, it's eating at them. So how do I identify someone who who has depression or who has anxiety attacks, and then how do I help them?
Okay. I like the point that you mentioned. A lot of times, abantu, they think that depression has got one face. This face that you see might be a depressed face. Your face might be a depressed face. Depression doesn't always, or anxiety for that matter, doesn't always have to look umuntu ngathi is down, crying, and because like you say, we are normal functioning human beings, even though we are depressed. And we try at some time to, meet up with the standards of Mhlaba, meet up with the expectations, and we end up putting these faces. Kodwa, the best way, whenever you notice a change of behavior, maybe in terms of interaction of your friend, or ukuthi lo muntu sekayazi isolator, or ukuthi lo muntu lo man ama energy levels akhe they are down. The best way is to ask a person, I notice this. Is there anything that I can help? Not to diagnose people. You see, abantu, they've got a misconception. Yoguti, I can have a bad day. I can have a bad day. And someone else will see me once in 17 because I have a bad day and say, I would depressed in Ambon. It doesn't work that way. But when you see, man, this thing has been constant. This person is no longer kept. This person, it is usually a sign that something is not right. And it is advisable, especially if you have a close relationship with that person. You know what? I can see something is not right. Is there a way that I can assist you? Is there a way, do you want to talk about it? Without telling or without like rushing what to do and what not to do.
That is very important, because I think I'm one of those people who just want to advise people without, because in my mind, I've read this book, I've read that book. If you've got that problem, just bombard people with the advice. But I'd also like you to tell me, Uti, particularly in us men, what are the main reasons we hide our true feelings from people who can help us?
With men, unfortunately, men are disadvantaged by their physique. Because whenever we think of a man, we think you're masculine, you're macho. If you look at a young child who's a boy, you see their movement, and they get like the praises. They already think, wow, they own the world. And so our culture, our society, and everything creates this macho mentality, as if men don't have emotions. Kanti men have emotions like any other people. That's why they are human beings. There's no human being who does not have an emotion. Kanti, the disadvantage is that a lot of people then end up being cropped up into meeting these standards. And when you are supposed to be crying, say you are hurt, no, tigers don't cry. A mistake. Because we hear that a lot, tigers, and the more you don't cry, the more you shelve your emotions, the more you bottle them up, the likelihood is that they are going somewhere. Those emotions that you are bottling up, they tend up being something bigger because you never dealt with them. You were never given a space, or you didn't even find a space for yourself to say, let me just deal with these emotions. Let me cry. I don't think there's anything wrong with men crying. Men do cry. There's absolutely nothing wrong with men expressing their emotions. And you know what we find, Muz? With a lot of men, depressive symptoms are, sometimes they differ a little with females. And I will tell you, you find that men, whenever they are depressed, because females, we talk. Like if I had an opportunity, I would talk with Usalenjo, Tulela, Nkulumile, because it is my nature. Females, we talk. Whilst men, they bottle their emotions up. it doesn't mean that those emotions are hidden. Those emotions by irritability, by being angry, by acting in another way, because there's that edge inside Yoguti. These emotions need to be out. And yes, women are yes, we are likely to have depression compared to men, and women are higher. That is questionable, because the chances are men do not report when they are depressed. They do not come out. That's why the suicide rate between men and women is higher in men, because some men, because they do not come out, then they find themselves in a vulnerable state, whereby since they are macho, whereby since they think, hey, I'm not even going to say in age, then they end up thinking suicide is the best way out. And you find the suicide rate in males is much higher than in females.
Yeah. And then what do I do, Portia, to, you know, there's an English saying, Etty, you must nip it in the bud. How do I, what should I do before I get to that point where I think suicide is the only solution? Because like you say, we have a lot of young men and young women as well who are killing themselves these days. Teenagers are killing themselves left, right, and center. What can we say, particularly to our teenagers, our young people who think, my problem is so big, the only solution is to take myself out, you know, or as they say, like who's keeping me. What should young people know from the beginning before you get to that point? What should you know just when this thing is developing?
You know, whenever a person is going through a depression and they think dying by suicide, mark my words, I never like saying committing suicide, because I don't believe people commit suicide. You commit a crime, but you do not commit suicide. That, let's be clear, hello. You die by suicide. No one wants to die by suicide. But because this is an illness, and because a person at that moment, through all these number of complexities, they feel that is the only way out, like you clearly put it. The best way is to advise anybody who is listening out there to say that don't be too quick. Don't be too quick to jump out of the game. And sometimes, yes, depression will make us feel I've exhausted all the avenues. Guess what? Who's got the capacity to exhaust all the avenues, regardless of how the problem change. And by the way, sometimes, do you know, people who go through stuff, it's not, the problem never changes. The secret is that it is the way you view the problem that changes. Sometimes the problem remains exactly the same. However, the whole mentality, the whole paradigm, we call it a paradigm shift, the whole paradigm of how you view a certain thing changes. Because somehow, as much as these negative emotions are so painful, as much as we feel, you know what, I'm defeated. Once you work through them, once you go through them, you see things in a different light, in a different manner. So what I'm saying to you is that as much as it is difficult, as much as it is painful, when you allow yourself to go through those things, we go through them, not because maybe we are being punished, we go through them because they bring that strength away. They bring that something that we call also like psychological resilience. Because most human beings learn that strength to say, I'm going to be resilient. I'm going to see things differently. I'm going to view things differently. I'm going to perceive myself differently.
I think what I seem to be understanding from your last, the last word you've just said now is, it is important to also have, to maintain a positive mental attitude in terms of how you see the world. You spoke a very beautiful word. You said it's about a paradigm shift. How do I I grew up in Makaya. We were poor. We lived in a mud house. I have a low self-esteem. How then do I change my paradigm? How do I shift my paradigm?
It's possible, because as much as you know, I don't believe ukuthi umuntu who grew up in an environment, our environment, as much as it can contribute, it doesn't determine ukuthi how I'm going to end up. Abantu ngisho nalabo abakhulela emakhaya, who grew up poor, who grew up disadvantaged, who grew up, they can grow up in those environments and change by themselves without being advised, because they know ukuthi outside this environment that I'm living in, there's so much more to it. So you learn, because a lot of times masingabantu, we are not, I don't think ukuthi we are binded or bound by our environment. We also learn and maneuver and navigate around the environments as Pilaguzo. So you learn a lot of things. People that bring the best out of you, you know them. You surround yourself with those people. People that always pull you down. It's easy. Nowadays, we teach a lot of people about boundaries. Whenever people come, whenever we teach people a lot. You know what? Sometimes the situation that you might be in, it is because you don't have boundaries. And AMA boundaries is not meant to push people away. It's meant to protect you. It's meant to assist you as a human being. Now to develop, now to grow, now to go.
I love that word develop, because I think it's like they say, a child forms their belief system. By the age of 7, they've already formed their basic belief systems about the world and about themselves, you know? So maybe can we just talk a little bit about self-image, how you see yourself as a person, as a way of helping you to maintain a positive mental attitude or a healthy mindset? Can we just talk about self-image or self-concept?
Yeah, self-concept is very important. Remember, Uguti, whenever a child is growing up, as parents, we have a problem. We either make it or we either break it. We make it, we improve it by telling a child, Uguti, this is a free, we make it, we bring it, we bring a very positive self-concept by assuring umntana Uguti, you are doing good. We don't pressurize kids. We don't put them in a corner. We don't say words like, hi, when we storm. You know, those things, what they do at that young age. And a lot of parents do it. How? It does happen. We see it all the time. Kids, like you say, they form it and they internalize it. That's when it creates a poor self-concept about what a person thinks. Because a person thinks, if umawami or ubabami thinks of me this way, then I'm not good enough. You understand? So it's important, the role of parents, the role of caregivers is important into telling their kids, Uguti, you are doing okay. Whenever a child did not pass, or whenever a child did not do something good, no, you'll improve. You'll work harder next time. This is, so you build it up. You build it up. Like your environment, especially depending with your caregivers and all that, those positive words, you build them up as well.
Yeah. You know, this is very educational for me as well, because, you know, sometimes I come from work, but my girls have been missing me at home, and all I'm thinking about is preparing for the next day and fully attention. And, you know, sometimes as parents, we get frustrated when we push them away. Hey, busy, you know, kind of thing. So, so these things stay with our kids, and as they grow up, they will have to face them. I love what somebody else once said. I think it was Ubaba Undabemyeza, who once said, if you don't deal with your relationship issues, you will have to deal with them in your relationships when you're older. you know?
Yeah.
So I think it's very profound what you've just said, Uti. How you see yourself, how you perceive yourself, the things you say to yourself. You know, I often say, Uti, one of the most important conversations you will have in life is the conversation you say about yourself, to yourself, the conversation you have with yourself, the things you say to yourself, you know. But having said that, there are sometimes situations where I will feel very sad, and then I will try to use a positive thinking, and then I'll go to my friends and say, it's a beautiful day, you know, what an awesome day it is. Or we'll even quote scripture and say, it's a beautiful day that the Lord has made, we shall celebrate and be glad in it. But deep down, I'm still feeling, Uguti, I'm not winning this war via positive thinking. Let's talk about getting help. How do I get help? Where do I go to get help in South Africa?
Okay. I want to answer one of your many questions because your questions are perfect. The first one, you said that sometimes positive thinking does not work. It's the truth. It does not make the problem go away. It go away. All I can tell you is that, do you know, Uguti, it is we usually encourage it and we say to be okay. We're creating a platform ukuthi abantu bazi ukuthi whenever you have identified, whenever you have acknowledged, whenever you have seen these emotions that you are going through, that you are to say, I'm not okay, today is not a good day. That does not make you weak. That simply makes you aware. You have that sense of self-awareness. You know what? I'm not okay. Yeah. And once you identify I'm not okay, automatically your mind wants a solution to deal with yourself not being okay. Do you see? So when a person now starts ducking and diving and not wanting to deal with their emotion, that is where the problem is.
Okay, so you're saying, Uti, I have to always be true to myself. I must not act happy when I'm not.
Exactly.
And tell people about it. Yeah. And then where do I go for help?
You know, if you have a medical aid, you can always, whenever you have identified, which I'm not okay, you can always go to a psychologist. I'm a psychologist. We've got your clinical, we've got your counseling psychologist. You can always even go to your GP. Your GP, now they are trained, they will refer you. A lot of referrals is either we get them from Guma psychiatrists or psychologists. Abanye abantu, they even go Guma social work, and including abafundisi in our communities. They do. We work a lot and hand in hand, including nabafundisi or spiritual leaders, to say, you know what, kunomuntu engimsizayo. So there's a lot of assistance there. And for people who do not have a medical aid and who do not afford to pay like your fees and all that, Emma Clinic, when you go to a clinic, you explain to whoever that you are consulting with, I'm experiencing this. They usually send you to a district hospital. And in a district hospital, you do find like your psychologist, you do find your psychiatrist, you do find your social workers, you get like that holistic assistance.
Okay. Speaking of abefundisi, now I come into this aspect. I know there's usually some kind of a war or a battle between spirituality and psychology. Talk to me about the spiritual aspect of it, if there is any, and the psychological aspect of it. Are the two mutually exclusive, or can I go to Mfundisi and then go to a psychologist? What is there a battle between the two?
No, there's no battle. According to me, abanye bangadifara. According to me, there's no a difference, because I'm Christian myself. I believe Uguti, as a human being, you are not made up of one, just like your soul, for instance. You are also made up of a spiritual component. And the good thing is, we should not think ukuthi sesiphila ngenkathi lezi zakudala, whereby things are opposite. Nowadays, things are favorable because you are able to see umfundisi, you are able to see a psychologist, you are able to see laba who believe in other spiritual things, they are able to see. And you find that we are a team of people assisting a person. We don't work against one another. And nowadays, especially now, when you started, you mentioned something very important. You said that, hey, because of the COVID and less cases that are happening out there, look at what is happening in I know, for instance, in Esontonwet, because I'm a member of ECFC, we are through Umamfundiswet, we are launching an iBuild helpline. I know Grace Bible Church also has got counseling lines. It doesn't mean that people that are employed there are not qualified. You understand? It is a common approach in order to assist psychological or wellness of people that need assistance. And it happens even with the ones that are not Christian, as long as in other churches as well, whatever they believe in, there's that a communal assistance. Yabantu. We work with a lot of people, I promise you.
Okay. I'd love for you to talk to a man out there who believes Uti, because there was a friend of mine, for example, when we were talking about seeing a psychologist, you know, so there's that perception of Uti, psychologist, kind of thing. So can you just talk to men out there, or even women for that matter, or even young people who don't believe in seeing a psychologist? One friend of mine once said, they just talk, and anything is not going to be solved by just talking. So tell me more about psychology and how you treat people, and just build the confidence to someone out there who doesn't believe in getting psychological help.
Okay. Ngiyabonga for that opportunity. Do you know ukuthi for anybody who doesn't believe in psychology, there wouldn't be this profession in psychology. Number one, for a person to be a psychologist, you need at least a 3-year or a 4-year degree, coupled with the honors. And on top of that, besubane masters year 2 years. My masters was 2 years because you have your theory and you have your research. On top of that, you have the internship. On top of that, you have your community service. Now, imagine a person yento engasebenzi, yento engekho, and we say we are just doing it. There is no such. And yes, abantu, because of a stigma that is attached to think I'm a psychologist, asebenza namahlanya. There is no such. I'm a psychologist, they work with everybody else. Because just like you have somebody who is out there who will work with your psychological well-being, you don't have to go with psychologist when you have a problem. By the way, there are other people who come to us and say, you know what, this is like a maintenance for myself. I need to be psychologically imbalanced. Yes, Portia, I was stressed last week by what was happening at KZN Nasegauteng. Therefore, I feel like I'm a bit stressed. I need you to assist me work through this. Do you see? So we work with everybody else. Yeah. And even if besebenza nabantu abahlanyayo, say for that reason, we are only limited to abantu abahlanya. Nabo abantu, we do get them assistance, we do get them help. So there is no such thing, no psychology, abantu abahlanyayo, you only talk. There is a lot of things that are happening. We do our evaluations, we do our testing, we get your background, we get your assistance, we get your help. Now we feel confident into moving on with your life. We empower you so that you can empower yourself. That is basically it.
Wow. You know, I love what you just said. In fact, I was going to ask you, Uti, can I just come to you and say, hey, as shy maintenance. Yeah. You know, let's do let's do 60,000 kilometers full service. You know, can I just come just to you and say, Portia, let's just talk? Can I just do that?
You can't do that. It's so important. It's so important. You don't have Guti. You know, this psychology needs to be demystified. It doesn't have to be this thing, because we are emotional beings as human beings. We are not only physical beings. Somewhere, somehow, you need to offload. Somewhere, somehow, you might even be doing it as a preventative measure. You understand? As not only as a preventative measure, because at times you may feel, you know what, we environment I don't want to offload Gubo. I don't want to add problems Gubo, and maybe I'll be a disorder. It is just stress in general. You can come to a psychologist. It is just any other things. Adjustment issues, you can come to a psychologist. It doesn't have to be those big words, which you're now na loco, and then you need a psychologist. No.
Okay. And then how do I help a friend who says, no, I'm great. I don't need help. I'm good. I'm sorted. How do I help that person?
You know, tell your friend, say you see a friend or tie, be patient with them. Patience is very integral in this part. And a lot of times, abantu, when they say no, it is because, number one, bias doubt. Remember, depression, anxiety, or any other mental illness, ihamba self-doubt, ihamba guilt, ihamba nanokuthi umuntu asabe, and as uzo stigmatized. Kuthiwa ukuzothe nangu yahlanya, okuzothiwa unama problems, ekuzothiwa unalokhu nalokhu. So sometimes the best thing is, number one, you become very patient with the person. You don't become judgmental. And do you know what, Muzi, a lot of people that I've seen who have attempted suicide, when you sit down and now sebahleli seka right, mawukhuluma naye uthi, all I needed was someone to talk to. I didn't want answer. I've heard it. Sometimes people want you to listen without you telling them, because once you start denying a person the chance to as express akhulume, you are invalidating them. I can come to you and say, you know, I'm feeling sad, and you say to me, "Hi, what are you doing to me? You are crushing me. You are making me to crunch back into my hole again, to say, I'm not that important." So a lot of people do that mistake by attempting ukunigama solutions. They end up invalidating abantu, which is problematic. So the most important things, the way of assisting somebody is to listen. And after listening, be patient with that person. Be patient and assuring the person, I'm always here. You need me, I'm always here. And make a person feel safe, make a person feel secured around you. Create that environment. I know Umuzi is there.
Thank you very much, because I think also what you've just hinted on is that we just need to go back to being human. You know, we need to be kind to one another. We need to be loving, more patient. In fact, I love what the Bible says when it talks about the fruit of the Spirit. You know, it says the fruit of the Spirit is love. The fruit of the Spirit is joy. It's patience, you know, being patient with one another. Hey, there's a lot we need to go back on as people, you know, even because when you are impatient, even on the road, a lot of the road rage, it comes from the fact that people are impatient. You know, we are not loving towards one another. We need to be more compassionate with one another, more sensitive, you know. Less sensitivity in Gaitanda, because it takes us back to Uti. You can't just say to someone, Uti, I want attention, you know, they just want the attention. Or someone says it's just a cry for help, you know. So we just dismiss people a lot. So I love what you said, Uti. We just need to be more compassionate. You know, sometimes we are in a rush to go and achieve things out there, and we leave people hanging when we could have just sat down and listened to them, listened to to their plight. So, in terms of farmer costs, what am I looking at? Because I will just see Ulokuzana, Mrs. Portia driving a Porsche, and I'm thinking,
I wish. Yeah. I take
we speak it into being. The Porsche Nayat is yes. So people, sometimes we have a tendency of just looking at you guys and thinking, hey, I can't even spell the word psychology itself. So how can we demystify Ubuzaknina, and what in general, what are the costs if I'm going to come to your private practice and say, I need weekly sessions with you? In terms of the costs, what am I looking at?
Okay. In terms of, most medical aids cover a session. Most medical aids. And the good thing is, with the COVID and all these things that are happening, medical aids have actually come up to say we need to have extra funds that is allocated for people that are going through these emotional issues, challenges, and all that, in order to assist. On top of it, when a person pays cash, depending on what bahlalapi, do you know ukuthi umuntu who is in Gauteng, umuntu ose KZN, umuntu ose Northwest, Free State, and everything else, the charges are not the same. But I can tell you ukuthi what happens a lot of times is that our charges, you start from 850 per session per hour. Kodwa ngoba singabantu sebenza differently. I never turn a person away because aphelelwa ama-funds. I don't say, okay, Jika, say phelile bayethu, because umuntu makaqala ukufika kimi, I tell them, this is where we are, this is how I'm going to be assisting you, and this is how we're going to be moving on. You understand? So as human beings or professionals, I don't actually know of any professional who turns a person away, even nomi treatment in agapeli. We come up with plans, we come up with ways of assisting umuntu. It's not about imal, it's about the well-being and the emotional wellness.
Yeah. So let's also talk about, I promise you, Sister Pet.
Fine, I've got time.
Let's talk about Ubuti. Ubuya psychologist. It's not like a genie in the bottle kind of a miraculous thing. There's a lot of work that I would also have to do to me if I come to a psychologist. The practical things that I need to do just to maintain a healthy mindset or a mental health.
Okay. Remember what I said to you earlier. I said to you earlier, we are not the same, right? And our personality is not the same. Our environment is not the same. Our upbringing is not the same. Everything else, Ngati, is totally different. What applies to you might not apply to me. I cannot say, go meditate, one room. It's not going to work when the kids are here. How am I going to meditate when things like that are happening? So the best way, in any way, that I can tell you, Uguti, listen to yourself. You know, that is so important. We call it self-awareness. One thing that we are blessed with is to have that consciousness. Be conscious, Uguti. This is what I'm feeling now. This is how I am feeling. This is what I am carrying. Listen to your body, listen to your soul, listen to your spirit. This is what I am going through. Listen to it. It's an indication, Yoguti. Once you are able to identify, Yoguti, this is what I am feeling. This is what I am carrying. This is what, then you are able to move. You are able to take a step. Like I said, let's leave this thing out, Yoguti. Whenever you are said, you must be this macho person or you must be this. It doesn't work because it will catch up with you. Listen to yourself. And again, when you start listening to yourself, afterwards, break it one step at a time to say, now that I'm feeling this way, now that I'm in this space, what do I do? And I advise people generally, which when you are in a bad space, it's okay to reach out. It's okay to say, let me check my friend who I'll just talk to. When you don't trust your friends, reach out. I mean, there are a lot of places that you can reach out for assistance out there. And try and break all these things that seem to be so much confusion, that seem to be putting you into a hole, and try taking it one step at a time. For instance, a person who's depressed might struggle to get out of take one step and say, you know what, today I'm just going to brush my teeth. One step at a time. You know, those small things that we take for granted, other people struggle. It's a serious thing. Other people struggle to say, you know what, I'm struggling. And depending on what is or what might be contributing factors to what you are feeling. You know, last week, last week, a lot of us, especially KZ, and we were feeling so anxious and we find ourselves glued with TV. At times, leave the TV alone so that you give yourself that breather. Leave all these bad news and because you know, Uti, those are anxiety provoking. Somehow limit your time, limit your Uti. Now you are following as if you are a journalist. No. Sit and say, you know what, I'm taking a break from all this. Sometimes even in social media, sometimes we find ourselves being so much glued up to social media. Leave things like that because you know they can be triggering circumstances.
Okay. Thank you very much. So I think what I'm taking from that is one has to be self-aware. I like the old adage, Eti, know thyself. You have to know when you're feeling in a certain way, don't deny it and get on this psychological positive thinking mentality, which is good. But I think what you're saying to me is positive thinking is good, but in endao miskatsai. And you're also saying to me, know yourself. When I feel this way, or sometimes even when I go and chill with Amachita, I always come back depressed because maybe they pick on me. So I think what I'm hearing you to be saying is limit whatsoever is a trigger for you to start feeling or going into that hole. And also just shut out whatever is causing it. Shut it out and limit it. That's what I seem to be hearing. But as also people would say in the street, vuga ugeze, fagi perfume, ubange. You know, somebody also once said, dress like you want to be addressed. You know, so now we can also present and also speak good about yourself. You know, if there's one thing that I did as a young person, even my friends would say, I almost actually, he's weird. They always said, I'm a weird guy, because I would always say positive things about myself. When I had nothing, I said one day, in fact, it's a secret. It's a bit personal, but. When I was a teenager, I would look at myself in the mirror and say, one day the world will know you. You know? So I affirmed it, I said it, and I said all the good things to me. Even when I didn't have money, I said, no, my tomorrow is better than today. So instead of thinking, I always thought, my future is bright. I always said it, my future is bright. Tomorrow, I'm going to have everything that I need. And most of what I said 10 years, 20, 30 years ago, I'm experiencing them today. So, looking to the future, let's just say, Uti, think positively about yourself. Say the best thing. Say, I'm going to be the president of South Africa. I'm going to be a president of a Fortune 500 company, you know, because I think sometimes what causes depression and anxiety is negative expectation. But let's just think positively about ourselves. Yes. How do we get you? How do people get a hold of you?
Okay. We are available with social media. It's Portia Clinical Psych. Economy Instagram. That's our Instagram handle. It's also we Facebook. And the good thing about these handles is because I'm also a mental health advocate. I give in tips just like that, free tips. So we also available we internet umuntu nje makathe Portia Mazabane or Portia M Mazabane, you can get me, as well as you can Google it. One more Google nje, you also find ama details ame khona lapho. We available, and you know, sometimes we even though nakama details put I have a screening, you know, sometimes I sometimes do ama radio interviews and I never turn people away. What do I even go to extent of doing is to say, if I can't assist you, I will refer you or get you places. So abantu maba WhatsApp, I should, yes, Portia, I'm from this province. I'm not comfortable in the online session. I refer because help is available regardless of which province. So we do send out information. Umuntu maka reach out to afunusizo ngaleyo ndlela leyo, we do assist.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time and for sharing with us your expertise. So many years. I did this for 3 years and then another 2 years plus another 3 years. So thank you very much. So is it true? Is it true with a psychologist now? You're a psychologist.
It's true. Remember what happens. Here's me my secret. My friends, abafundis, nabo mamfundis. I get it therapy. That's how I make sure I laugh. Put to umamfundis way to umamfundis women. We laugh a lot. She's my psychologist. I'm sure we have. But it does happen. You need somebody that you can always offload. As long as you are a human being, regardless which whether you are a psychologist, psychiatrist, whatever, all human beings need one another so that we can empower one another, so that we can improve. I don't think we live in an island in isolation. Whoever you are, educated, not educated, you benefit somebody else out there without you being aware or not aware.
Thank you very much. As Khalil Gibran said in his book, The Prophet, he said, you can't pour from an empty cup. So your cup must always be filled in order to be available for other people.
Precisely.
Somebody just said, yeah, we need a TV show. So we on, eh? Yimi, who is stealing? Thank you very much, Siswami, for your time, and may God bless you. Ears, yacht, ne private jet.
Hey, ngizokuphi lift.
Thank you very much. Eh?
Thank you.
Okay, sure. Okay, bye-bye. Yes, good now.